What are the best armor property runes in Pathfinder Second Edition? Which ones are they? And did my dad just use an invisibility rune when he went out to get milk, or is he really gone? This is the Dominomicon, authored and hosted by me, Dominic. The Dominomicon is dedicated to all nerdy things, with my current obsession being the TTRPG Pathfinder Second Edition. In this video chapter, I'm going to go over the top 10 armor property runes for Pathfinder 2e. This is kind of a bit of a follow-up to my top 20 weapon property runes video, so it's probably recommended that you go and watch that one first, but you don't have to do that. I'm still going to go over everything here for you, you lovely, lazy people. Now, I've only gone for 10 this time around because there's just over 50 armor property runes rather than the 80-ish for the weapon runes. Unlike weapon property runes, pretty much every single and double and triple class in the system is going to want to get some use out of armor property runes, so it's probably more important that you know about these runes versus the weapon ones. If you find this video chapter helpful and or enjoyable, please give it a like and consider subscribing, joining as a member, or taking a look at links in the description to my Patreon, or donate via my Coffee account, etc. It's all appreciated, like, massively. So let's use that advancing rune for a free movement to the music to start it up. Right, let's briefly go over how fundamental runes work specifically for armor this time. If you're already aware of these rules, skip to the timestamp on screen now to jump straight into the list itself. Similarly to fundamental runes for weapons, there are two types of fundamental runes for armor, potency and resilient. Potency gives you a +1 item bonus to your AC and can be bought around level 5-ish, and this also unlocks a property slot, exactly the same as weapon runes. Around level 11-ish, you can buy a +2 armor potency rune, which allows you to have 2 property runes in there and obviously increases your AC by another 1, and the same with the +3 armor potency rune around level 18. And just the same as the weapon property runes, you cannot put 2 +1 armor potency runes in your armor to give yourself 2 property rune slots. You have to get the +2 for 2 and the +3 for 3. I'm getting major deja vu saying this. And the aforementioned resilient rune increases all of your saving throws by 1, 2, or 3, but that's nothing to do with property runes, so we'll leave that there. So what actually do armor property runes do? Well, first of all, unlike weapon property runes, the second you throw a rune onto your armor, you need to invest in the armor to be able to gain the bonus from it, whether that be potency, resilient, or property, etc. And can I just say off script how terribly this is written and how it still wasn't even fixed in the remaster? Like, could you have made this more ambiguous, Paizo? You literally could have written about 2 extra words and made this 100% concrete. It says that it still gives its item bonus to AC when not invested. Well, a +1 potency rune is an item bonus, but then it says it doesn't give its magical bonus to saving throws. I mean, that bit's fine, that bit makes sense. So does the +1 count though or not, whether you invest or not? Like, why didn't you just say that after the bit where it says the saving throws? It could have just said all the additional +1 from the potency rune. Damn, Paizo, why do you have to make this more complicated than it already is? To make this clear, by the way, the second you put on a fundamental rune, the armor is counted as magic armor, and magic armor requires investment for it to work anyway. So as I was saying, you need to invest in your armor to have any of the runes work from it, and you have by default an investment limit of 10. You can increase this with the incredible investiture feat, but that requires a +3 in charisma and it's a level 11 feat, though Thaumaturge can get their own better version at level 10. As for the property runes themselves, well, sometimes they give you an item bonus, sometimes they give you resistance to certain damage types, sometimes they even allow you to cast a spell. They can be quite varied in how they work, similar to weapon property runes, and this list does indeed go over the ones that I think are most worth your time. And something that's absolutely worth mentioning about armor property runes is that they only count as 1 investment even when you end up with 3 runes in there, and this is unlike any other magical equipment you can invest in. So this means you could potentially invest in up to 3 different effects despite it only actually being 1 item investment. And considering you're almost definitely going to be investing in a magic armor anyway, because you want the +1 item bonus and resiliency bonus, etc., having multiple bonuses on that additionally makes armor property runes very strong indeed and makes them a better choice versus the normal magic item equivalent. As a quick example, if you grab the energy resistant rune and the shadow rune and throw that on your armor that you're already invested into anyway, because at that point it's probably going to be a +1 resilient, then you don't need to grab a charm of resistance and you don't need to get a clandestine cloak either, because you've already got those bonuses with your property rune, thus saving you 2 investment slots. And in case you're not aware, every character in this system is going to max out their investment slots. It's not a matter of if, it's just a matter of when. And definitely keep in mind that you're probably going to end up with multiple property runes on your armor, so instead of judging these individually, try to consider them as grouped with other ones. As always, combine abilities in PF2E for power. Lastly, before I jump into the rules for this list, some armor property property runes can only go on certain types of armor, like the shadow rune I already mentioned can only go in light or medium and not heavy. Right, rules for the list. Rarity is irrelevant, as is price, as is whether these runes are legacy or remaster, as they're all still valid, and I will be picking the ones that I think are most effective or game-changing. Generally, I tend to favor my picks for items that are more universally usable rather than very specific for certain builds. I'll start low level and go high, and they're in no other order than that. And the more expensive, more powerful versions of certain runes are available. I'll feature each rune once, but I will mention the better versions as well at the same time. And we're gonna have a few runners up at the end. Right, time to jump in. The Dread Rune is level 6, costs 225 gold, and is uncommon and can go on any type of armor. It's also got a bunch of traits on it because it's specifically to do with the fear effect. So frightened enemies within 30 feet of you have to make a DC 20 will save at the end of their turn, and on a fail, their frightened condition doesn't decrease below 1 on that turn, which is pretty cool. Or it's pretty scary if you are said enemy. The level 12 version increases the DC to 29, costs 1,800 gold, and it makes that frightened condition not go below 2 rather than 1. And the greater version at level 18 costs 21,000 gold, makes the DC 38, and the frightened condition doesn't decrease regardless of the value. This is just very much giving you bang for your buck if you or any of your allies inflict the frightened condition, and considering frightened is one of the best debuffs in the whole system as it lowers all of your stats by 1, this makes this particular armor property rune quite powerful indeed. You just gotta remember to make sure you get your GM to do those saves, as yeah, maybe I'm gonna forget sometimes. I got enough to remember, alright. Next. Yeah, well, this is number 2, and I'm doing 2 for 1 because I'm a big cheater like that. Stanching is a level 5 uncommon armor property rune that costs 130 gold and can go on any armor. This reduces the flat check to end persistent bleed damage from 15 to 12 and 7 with assistance. I don't know why I said assistance. The greater version at level 9 costs 600 gold, and that DC goes from 15 to 10 and 5 with assistance. The major version costs 2,500, is level 13 and reduces it to 8 and 3 with help. And the true version at level 17 costs 12,500 gold and reduces it to 5, and the assistance automatically removes the persistent bleed damage. Really good. I always like how powerful items in fantasy games are sometimes called the true versions. It's like it implies that all the other ones are complete bollocks, which is lovely. And the Quenching rune is quite similar, but it's for persistent acid or fire damage. The initial one is level 6, 250 gold, and can go on any armor once again. This is common rather than uncommon, but those flat checks are exactly the same. It's just that the price of the items and the item level is a little bit higher. The initial one, as I said, is level 6. The next greater one is at level 10 for 1,000 gold. The major one is level 14 for 4,500, and the true version is level 18 for 24,000 gold. Honestly, having both of these on your armor if you're a tanky character is a no-brainer. It's pretty awesome to be able to reduce those flat checks, and that's going to save you a lot of damage in the long run. Absolutely worth your time. Sorry, shouldn't it be staunching and not stanching? Right, more runes. The Invisibility rune is a common level 8 item that can only go into light armor, and it costs 500 gold. Once per day for 1 action, you can become invisible for a minute. The greater version at level 10 costs 1,000 and allows you to activate it up to 3 times per day. So first of all, being able to go invisible for a single action is pretty cool, even if it is only once per day. I just like the idea of being able to cast this in the middle of a fight for a single action and then running away from the encounter, getting into a better position, and then starting the fight up once again. I'm always a fan of things that replace spell slots, and this kind of just does that. You don't need to bother with the invisibility spell so long as you have this rune. Granted, it doesn't have the heightened version, which is a lot cooler because it doesn't end when you do a hostile action, but hey, it's still a free spell slot every day, and up to 3 spell slots depending on which one you take. There's nothing wrong with that. Moving on. The Energy Resistant rune is a level 8 item, costs 420 gold, and is common and can go on any armor type. When you're buying or crafting this, you choose acid, cold, electricity, or fire, and you get a permanent 5 resistance to that energy type so long as you are using or wearing this armor. At level 12, it goes up to resistance 10, though that one costs 1,650 gold. Again, considering there are charms in this game that can give you resistance, that's still something you need to invest in separately, whereas you're probably already investing in your magic armor anyway. This is basically just free energy damage resistance. Now, there's nothing wrong with free things like this video. It's free. Well, it's free up until I tell you to like, subscribe, and comment, and then technically it has some sort of cost. It's only low cost, but it's technically no longer free, is it? Let's just keep going before I accidentally convince you to click off this video. The gliding rune can go into any armor, is level 8 and costs 450 gold and is common. For one action that has the concentrate trait, you can start to glide. You move 5 feet down and up to 25 feet forward through the air. So long as you've spent this action, you actually remain in the air at the end of your turn. This effectively, so long as you have an action available, it means you can never suffer fall damage because you just spend an action and stop yourself from falling. I think that's pretty awesome for a level 8 item, and it can be done infinitely. There's no limitation on how often you can do this, so long as you have that action available. Yes, being able to fly is obviously a lot better, but this is not a spell, and you can just do it an infinite amount of times, and it's just really cool. I like it. Next rune. The Advancing rune is common at level 9 and can only be etched onto heavy armor and costs 625 gold. After you have murderized someone, you get to, as a free action, stride up to 15 feet and it doesn't trigger reactions. And if you can burrow, climb, fly, or swim, you can do that instead. The level 16 version for 8,000 gold allows you to stride up to your speed instead of 15 feet. This is just free movement and it's a free action. And actions in this system, as I always say, equal power, so you're potentially giving yourself some free power. This is probably one of my favorite property runes in the whole system, actually. Free movement is incredibly underrated and is honestly game-changing. Give me more runes. Speaking of incredibly powerful runes, the Fortification rune is level 12, can be etched onto medium or heavy armor, and is 2,000 gold. This one actually is definitely my favorite armor property rune. It's incredibly powerful. When you are crit while wearing this armor, you attempt a DC 17 flat check. On a success, the crit is a normal hit. This is just a passive. It doesn't cost an action. It just happens. Very, very strong. That's a 20% chance to turn every crit into a hit for nothing. However, this does increase the bulk of the armor by 1 and the strength needed to reduce the penalties by 2, so it makes it a little bit heavier, but your strength will more than likely be high enough by then anyway. It's absolutely worth it though, because a free check to stop a crit could potentially be game-changing. The level 18 version costs 24,000 gold for good reason, because it changes the flat check down to 14, which is a 35% chance to turn all crits into normal hits. Remember, there's no limitation on this usage, no cooldown, no action cost. It just happens every single time you crit. It's madness. Right, 3 to go. The Winged or Winged, depending on how posh you are, rune costs 2,500 gold and can go onto any armor and is level 13. Once per hour for 2 actions, you can fly. You're either getting 25-foot fly speed or you choose your land speed, whichever is slower, sadly. It lasts for 5 minutes or until you dismiss it. You can also get the level 19 version for 35,000 gold, which lasts indefinitely, and you can dismiss and activate as often as you'd like. Still costs those 2 actions though. So I mean, this is just free flight, and it's permanent flight as well, which is just always a lovely thing. Usually most spellcasters by this point have lots of ways to make you and themselves fly, but hey, if you're a martial with 0 spellcasting ability, you can now fly forever and 3 more days. Lovely stuff. And the penultimate rune is... The Spellwatch rune is a level 13 item, can go into any armor type and cost 3,000 gold. At the start of each of your turns, you get a free check to make another saving throw against a hostile spell effect that is affecting you. And if you fail, nothing changes. It doesn't make it worse or anything, which is really good. It's just a free check to possibly remove some nasty afflictions that are going on. There's plenty of spells in this game that are sort of area-based, and if you fail your save while you're in that area, then you're affected by the spell, such as Freezing Rain as an example. So if you start your turn after already failing your save, you get a free check again, and you can just dismiss the effects potentially, which is pretty awesome. Bear in mind that for some of these spells, you just make a single save and they can last like up to a minute, like Synesthesia, for example. But with this particular rune, you get to make that check again every time you start your turn, which honestly is very, very strong. Like if you get slowed with the slow spell, for example, it lasts for a minute, but with this, you can just keep making that check every single turn and potentially remove it. Very strong and possibly underrated. Right, the final choice is... The Antimagic rune is level 15, uncommon, and can go into any armor and costs 6,500 gold. This gives you a +1 status bonus to saving throws against magical effects, which means it does indeed stack with your Resilient rune. And it has a reaction once per day. When you've been targeted by a spell or you're in its area, you can potentially counter it with a 7th rank Dispel Magic with a counteract modifier of +26, which is not amazing, but still pretty good. Plus, being able to potentially counteract spells is awesome as well. It's like icing on the cake. And considering the +1 is amazing in itself. Honestly, you don't really need anything else. That's just extra. Definitely a great rune, and I do indeed recommend it to pretty much most characters out there. Right, that's the big 10 out of the way. Let's go on to the runners-up. I mentioned the Shadow rune a couple of times. Getting a +1 to potentially +3, ultimately, anyway, to your stealth checks is nice on armor that you're going to be investing into anyway. Nothing wrong with that, just not quite as good as the other ones, in my opinion. Stealth isn't, like, great for everyone. Malleable is actually really strong. It's just that there's not all that many classes that gain access to armor specialization. I think it's, what is it, Champion, Fighter, and I think Inventor. Even Guardian doesn't, which is kind of surprising. But basically, you get to change the type of armor spec that it has for one action, and some of the armor specializations are really cool. They just give you, like, resistance against different damage types. So if you know that you're fighting an enemy that's doing lots of slashing damage, you can just one action swap it over to plate, or if they're doing bludgeoning, one action swap it over to leather. It's pretty good. It's just a bit limited because barely any classes actually get armor specialization. Energy absorbing is decent. It only lasts a single turn, though triggering weaknesses could be good. It's very specific though. Adaptive is probably a little bit better, but it doesn't get a greater version, and it costs a reaction and has a 1-hour cooldown if you get hit with a different energy type. Raiment, I think, is more for flavor than anything else. I guess it's like a social rune. It allows you to make yourself look fancy, or the opposite, if you like. Who doesn't look like looking fancy? Yeah, that made complete sense. Aim aiding is good if you have regular ranged attacks from allies, but it's a little bit more specific and less universal, as you can just, like, consider your positioning most of the time anyway. It's still good in certain groups though. And that's all of my favorite armor property runes. They're actually nowhere near as cool as the weapon property runes, at least most of them aren't. I really think we could do with a lot more, honestly. Like, I don't really see why we don't have more of the skill bonus ones. Like, we could have one for every single skill, and athletics one, acrobatics one, etc. I don't really see why. And I don't think they'd be too overpowered, because we have the shadow one, so clearly this is a thing that we can have in the system and it'd be okay. The irony there is that they're not all as impressive as the weapon ones, but they're a lot more universal because, as I said, basically everyone's going to end up using them. Strange. Anyway, please let me know your favorite armor property runes. Let me know if you think they could do with making some cooler ones by adding a comment. Hopefully this list was helpful for you, and if it was, please consider subscribing and adding a comment, liking, checking out my Patreon, donating coffee, yada yada, all that stuff, for joining as a member. I always appreciate the support, and it's needed to keep this channel alive. And if you like the look of my cool glowing book, that would be because of my artist Leandro Notado. Check my description for links to his portfolio. I do intend to use more of his art going forwards because he's a lovely dude and he was very easy to work with. As ever, I'd like to thank my archivists and members: Max Magnus 20019, Ozzy Smith, Nikolai Milenkovic, Kyle Travis, Bentfair, Apteryx13, and patrons and archivists Clash, Q, and Patrick O'Donoghue. But for now, this is Dominic of the Dominic Nomicon, wishing you a fond farewell, and until next time, goodbye.